So we're here today with Vanessa Lhotka, which is from Appleton.
Appleton, yep.
Do you claim Appleton?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Appleton.
Okay. And she's here today because in 2005, I served with her brother, Jesse, who ended up getting killed in Iraq, February 21st, 2005. So we're going to find out about your life and your childhood with Jesse and how everything went before Jesse's got in the military and after, how it's been going for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's 20 years now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Jesse would have turned 44 in March. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a couple years younger than me. I said I never knew that.
Is he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that
46.
either.
Yeah, I'm 46. 46.
Wife check-in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about your childhood? With yours first, and then we can...
I would say me and Jesse. Okay, I'm one of 6 siblings, and so Jesse, me, and my older sister, we were born in Appleton. My mom graduated high school there, and then we moved to Bruton, Minnesota, briefly for about 4 or 5 years, where my 3 younger siblings were born. My parents got divorced, and my mom moved back to Appleton to be close to family, and she raised us 6 kids all by herself.
Oh, wow.
So Jesse was 10, and my baby sister was 0. So yeah, she had her hands full.
That is a lot, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. She worked a lot, and we all took care of each other. You know, like I feel like that was a big thing, especially like in the 80s, 90s.
Yep.
It was like I think more prominent. Like siblings kind of carried a lot more of the load, maybe than now we expect them to. You know,
Yep.
I know my kids are kind of footloose and fancy free compared to how I grew up.
Not worried about raising the rest of them.
Yeah, right, for sure. So yeah, we moved back to Appleton, and then that's where we stayed. So we got back there when I was 12.
Okay.
And we all graduated from Lhotka Valley High School.
So, what's the age difference between you and Jesse?
3 years.
3 years?
So my mom had 6 kids in 10 years. Yeah. Jesse's the oldest.
Yep.
And he was definitely, like I said, since my parents got divorced and my dad wasn't in the picture anymore, my brother Jesse he kind of played the role of big brother, father, co-parent.
Right.
Yeah, everything.
I suppose he's by the time you moved back to Appleton, he's 15.
Yeah, he was. And we actually knew so many people in Appleton because my grandma always lived there, and we'd come up for the summers. Jesse would stay with my grandma all summer.
Okay.
So my mom's best friends from high school, Jesse was best friends with their kids.
Oh, so that worked out good coming back.
Yeah, it was really seamless, and we all had so many friends here. So, yeah, so we stayed in Appleton, and then the reason I ended up in Ortonville is because I started working at Headwaters on my summers out from college. I didn't want to work in Appleton. I thought, well, I could make more money waitressing out of town at a bigger restaurant than what we had in Appleton. Yeah. Somehow I ended up at Headwaters. Just randomly walked in, asked for a job, and got hired. I ended up working there for 13 years.
Oh, well, that's a pretty good...
Yeah, between other things, because also I worked as the children's programming librarian here in Ortonville for 3 or 4 years. And then I worked at the Upper Minnesota River Watershed District for 7 years.
Okay.
Before I took my current job now, which is the director of the Big Stone Healthcare Foundation up here at the Ortonville Area Health Services.
Okay.
So
that's quite a career. That's a lot of learning.
Yeah, well, I feel like I had good jobs. Like children's programming librarian was great. I loved working at the watershed. We did a lot of environmental work.
Yep.
And I've been with the foundation for 8 years, which I'm super passionate about.
Yep.
You know, I think our healthcare in Ortonville is second to none. And I consider myself a dual citizen. I live in Appleton, and I raised my family there, and I'm even on the city council. But I'm also really involved in Ortonville. You know, I'm head of the Big Stone County Salvation Army. I'm vice president of the United Appeal here in Ortonville. So I'm involved.
Yeah, I hear, we haven't met officially,
right?
But through the phone we have, for the fire department.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And I've heard your name's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm busy. And then I have 4 teenagers, so yeah, there's no slowdown in our life at all.
So did you graduated from Lhotka? Did you go to school after that?
Yep, I went to Alec Tech, and then I ended up with an associate's degree from Minnesota West. Okay. I mean, I had my first kid when I was 23, so I always wanted to go to more school, but I also wanted to be a mom. Yeah. So I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years, and I loved that. Mm-hmm. I got to teach my kids all the basics, like just those opportunities. Like it's hard at the time, but those opportunities to spend
So
that
important.
early years with your kids, yeah, it's so priceless.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Now I'm looking forward to them moving on. Like I enjoyed that time, but yeah. So there's a reason for, I think, every season of parenting is what I say.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
So
Yeah. So then, as you, how old were you when when Jesse joined the Guards? Do you know what year he did that in?
yeah, I think he joined his junior year. Jesse was held back in kindergarten. So he was a year older than all the other kids in his class.
Okay.
So he went his junior year, and he spent his junior summer in his first year of basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yep.
That was like, back then it was like pre 9/11. I mean, there was no worries.
No.
We never thought in a million years he'd ever be deployed. We thought that he was safe. I mean, we thought, well, if you have to go to the cities and help with flooding, because back then we were having a lot of flooding,
Yep.
and sandbagging.
And that's all we did.
Yeah, we used to get out of school to go sandbagging. So, yeah, we weren't worried about it. And the biggest thing is, like, we obviously was 6 kids and a single parent. We grew up really poor,
Yep.
and one of the things is you don't know you're poor until someone tells you.
Yep.
Luckily for us, no one told us till we were like teenagers. We had the best life. I mean,
Yeah.
we like made up games and had bands and clubs, and with 6 of us, we always had kids over at our house, and we were busy, so we didn't know. And then when we got to be teenagers, we all got jobs.
Yep.
I mean, my mom taught us to be hardworking and busy,
Yep.
loyal to each other. So we had a great childhood.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So then did at some point did you get Jesse get a car or somebody get a car to give his kids a ride around? Because there would have been a lot of rides in that.
You know what's really bad is that he got this beater. Literally, it had like the bumper welded up, and it had a bump in the front. And I remember all the guys at school put all these reflectors all over because they're like, if Lhotka's car gets hit again, it's done for. And but the first year he went to basic training, he let me use it for the summer. He's
okay.
like, okay, I'll be back or whatever. And the first time he drove it, when he got back, it blew up. I didn't change the oil all summer. I didn't do anything. It was so bad. So, no, he's always like taking care of us. Jesse is awesome. And I think that's why he joined the Guards, because there's that level of brotherhood that he already was really familiar with. That loyalty and strength. And he was proud to join the military.
Yeah, and I think that did carry on with them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like so important to him. And I think that also Jesse loved the idea of serving his country.
Yep.
And then this was an opportunity for him to go to school and get like a 4-year degree and not come out with a load of debt.
Yeah.
And Jesse was very driven, and he was really good at money. I mean, he ended up graduating in college for finance. And ever since we were little, I mean, like from the early Monopoly games, Jesse was the banker. No one got to be the banker. And like, do you remember the farming game?
Yeah.
We used to play that. And Jesse is like such a stickler about directions that he'd be like, just wait, you guys, it's raining. He'd have to go back and consult the directions. He's like, and yeah, so he's just all about, he wanted to give his family a better life
Yeah.
in the future than what we had. So he was really driven like that, and the military gave him so many opportunities to make all his dreams come true.
Yeah, and I've heard it from other people, like how just signing up, how it can change your whole life. Like if you, like it breaks that
Absolutely.
for your kids.
Yeah, I think like it broke a generational thing for Jesse. Like, here, we're going on to the next thing. And my mom is really proud because she's like, all 6 of my kids went to college, all graduated, have good jobs. And so I think that's a source of pride for her. And it started with Jesse. He's like, nope, we're all going to go out. And he's like, even though we had a good childhood, we're going to do better for our kids,
Yeah, that's a feat. I mean, on your mom, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a massive feat.
Yeah.
Was it hard when Jesse went to basic then?
Oh, it was so hard. Yeah, because sorry.
That's fine.
He definitely. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. We got time.
Sorry. No, we'd always been together.
Yeah.
There's so many things that had happened to our family. We had, when we were little, our house burnt down, like in Bruton.
Okay.
We just went through a lot of stuff, and Jesse was really the rock of our family.
Yeah, I bet it was really hard. And then just if he was taking care of, like, helping take care of all the kids and stuff,
Yeah.
that would have been really hard. A lot.
And like I said, my baby sister was 10 years younger than him. So there was a lot. And Jesse and I were really, really close. So he went to Fort Sill that summer and he came back. Like, I just remember too, when he came back, I remember thinking like he left as like my brother and a boy. He came back like a man. Like, I mean, he was a different person and in a good way, you know?
Yeah.
In the same way, I hope my son, when he goes to college and the first time I see him, I'm like, I hope you come back a little bit more manly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a good thing. Yeah, it was important. And I remember him showing us the video. You know, they make like that memorial. I don't know if they still do it. But back then he had like this video. It was kind of like what we'd call a slideshow now of like how basic training went.
Yep.
And I remember seeing him come out of like the gas chamber.
Yeah, that's a classic picture of everybody.
Yeah, that was like the best part. And he would like show it to us all, and he'd like pause it. He's like, "You guys look at my face," like, because the other thing about Jesse is he's funny.
Oh,
you know?
he was very funny.
Yeah, he was just the life of the party, and I think that really balanced with his, you know, serious side and his drive. He's just such a good person. Everyone loved him, you know, and you say that about people, but he's just really one in a million. So.
Yeah, I wasn't in the same squad as him, but his sense of humor could get, like, many people through anything, because it was just turned something into funny. Yeah,
he just saw, and my whole family has, is just this kind of dry, kind of funny sense of humor, and yeah, it's a lifesaver, you know.
Yeah, it
so,
is.
Yeah. Then he did his senior year in high school, and I mean, like, Jesse was just a total prankster. I remember he's like homecoming king, and he was class president. You know, really well liked. I remember after he passed, some of the newspapers said, "Oh, high school quarterback." That he was not. Like, he was not very sports minded or athletic and stuff. So there's, you know, don't believe everything you read on the internet. But yeah, he was really involved, and he had a ton of friends. And he did that second summer of basic training and graduated. And you know, he came home. Jesse went to Fergus Falls Community College with some friends, and he got his 2-year degree. And then he decided to go to St. Cloud State. And the best weekends when he was in college were guards weekends. You know,
because he'd come back.
Yeah, and so we always knew what weekends he was coming back. So like I said back then, I even worked at Headwaters on the weekends still, like from college. And Jesse would even come over and get me. He'd be like, "Okay, you said you're done at 10. Let's go." You know, and we spent so much family time. I mean, we were just really close family. So yeah, those were nice weekends. And
I think that's a good part of the guards too, is because it gets you home every month.
Yeah, I do.
See, like, it gives you good like, you don't have to choose them to spend them with your family. Some people don't, but at least you're home.
Yeah, and even the guides that would like stay at the armory and stuff, like sometimes Jesse would stay, they'd have so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and just that, like I said, that brotherhood. And a lot of the guys Jesse was in the guards with, they were childhood friends of ours, classmates, and people that were still, that I was close to since we were 5 years old.
Yep.
And people I'm still close to this day. So it's, it's that brotherhood and that importance.
Yeah, and it must pass down, like, through the family.
Yeah.
What he did good for the good.
Yes.
Like, helped out the rest of the family.
What I would say too is like the guys that Jesse served with, and beyond that, even guys he didn't serve with. It's like a brotherhood. If I run into them or they find out who I am, or I don't really wear them anymore, but I used to wear like LTD sweatshirts because it's been like 10 years. But I'd be at the state fair and someone come up to be like, "How do you know LTD?" You know, I mean, you meet people everywhere you go that have that connection. Not just to Jesse, but Jason and David, who also died that day with Jesse. So, yeah, it makes this lifelong connection.
Yeah. And it's really nice that people still remember.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I mean, the most important thing, like anybody who passes, you don't want their memory to die.
No.
So, the fact that people put so much into that is so important.
Yeah, that was, People put a lot of time.
Yes, they do. And even to this day, I mean, last year, for Memorial Day, after the Memorial Day service in the cemetery, we toured the newest memorial in Appleton, which Appleton's a very veteran-friendly city.
It's amazing.
Every street's named after a local veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse was the last veteran to have a street named after him, and it's actually kitty corner from where I live. It's Lhotka Avenue, right there on the pool.
Yep.
And I remember when they dedicated that street, it felt so fitting because every summer, like I say, we stayed at my grandma's. Yep. That's all we did is swim at the pool. I mean, every summer day of the year. And I remember being like scrounging around for $1 to get in the swimming pool, and all of our friends doing that. So many good memories there with our friends. So now my kids have done that, and now they lifeguard there. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and it's like,
well, that's a good.
It's just nice, you know. You drive over and see those signs, and there's just always constant reminders.
Yeah.
So, and then like I said, last Memorial Day, local artist Carrie Kolke-Bonk had made these portraits of every soldier that has a street named after him, like hand-drawn portraits. It's amazing. She called me to come see Jesse's before they unveiled it to the public. It's beautiful. And then there's a little biography of them, and you can walk along and look at all those, and they're up year-round.
And that's by Subway on
Correct.
7, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're still working on it. Like, they're going to add, like, I think granite, and they have like a walking path, and, you know, just beautify it up. And it's really nice if you go when the flags of honor are up too.
Yep.
It's just a sight. It's just really proud of my hometown for that.
That's very nice of Appleton to support.
Yeah. And not just Jesse, but like when we were there for the dedication last year, they said, like, raise your hand if you have a family member, you know, displayed in these. And I thought it would just be my family. Mm-hmm. And there was like 5 or 6 families.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, it was really cool to kind of connect with some of them. I mean, there was one set where it's brothers that died, I think, within months of each other. And so it's something
that is
to see. And yeah, I encourage you to stop if you have a chance and just read about every one of those soldiers. I mean, important. And she kind of lists, like, yeah, just a little biography. It's pretty special.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So then if what did you do after you graduated? You went to school too. So then you went to school for a while. Were you and Jesse at school at the same time then?
Yeah, I was in Alexandria and Jesse was in St. Cloud. And I remember what we used to do in the summer is, the way we went to my grandma's in the summer, we used to go get our little brothers and sisters, and I would take them for 2 weeks. Then I meet Jesse halfway between Alec and St. Cloud, and he'd take him for 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
He'd usually last about like 5 days, and he'd call me and he'd be like, look, the kids were rollerblading through the halls of my apartment building, you know, something. So, but we would join together. We took them like Valley Fair and do different stuff with our siblings.
They really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, my brothers and sisters have good memories, I think, from those days. They still talk about it. So
was Jesse, at that time, he was going to St. Cloud State?
Yes, by then.
Did he have a girlfriend then at that time? Or?
You know what's funny is, do you know Patrick Running? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Patrick, his wife Holly and him were, I think, just dating maybe at the time, or married. And Holly knew this woman named Stacy Walters. And so she thought it'd be fun to set Stacy and Jesse up on a blind date. So she'll always say Jesse showed up with a white rose, and she said basically that was it. Like, they were together since then. Okay. So he finished up school in St. Cloud, and then he moved to Alexandria with her. She was in HR at like the Alec Clinic there. Okay. And so Stacy was a great fit for our family. She actually, it's odd because she's an only child.
Oh, that must have been a real like eye opener for somebody.
And both of her parents were only children. Yeah. So it couldn't be more opposite, really. It really couldn't. I mean, her family owned a business. Our family was like, everyone gets on and works. But she loved having a new, big, huge family. Oh. And, you know, with families that are big, with a lot of siblings, you tend to be really loud and a little over the top. And so that's definitely how the Lhotka family is. And it was eye-opener for her, but Stacy loved it.
She loved it.
Yeah, and we're still close. She just came to my son's graduation 2 weeks ago.
That's so nice.
Yeah. She's married again and has kids, and she's actually my son's godmother. So, yeah, so we stay close with her. Yeah. And important because I think we're lifelines for each other, you know, kind of a connection to Jesse. So, when the deployment orders kind of came out for you guys to go.
And that would have been like the spring of 2004.
Yes, that's right. Jesse and Stacy weren't married yet.
Okay.
They were still dating. And yeah, Jesse graduated that year. And I think I sent you one of his college graduation pictures of like our family and maybe some of him and Stacy. We did Jesse's college graduation, and then right after that, he moved to Alexandria with Stacy there.
Oh, yeah.
And when those deployment orders come up, I remember I was driving out to my boyfriend at the time's family reunion, and I was just like north of Appleton, and Jesse called me to tell me that the deployment orders had come. And yeah, that was a hard day. You know, that was after 9/11, so we all kind of expected something.
Yeah.
We knew, but the reality, I mean, and it feels kind of silly to be telling you that because you know you've been through it.
Yeah, but it was a big, like, you kind of knew something was coming, but you never knew when.
Absolutely.
And then once it came, then it was real.
It was real. And the unknown, I think, is what's really hard to handle. Like, what kind of, are you going into combat zone? Are you going into escorting? I can't remember what you guys
Yeah, we
called
did
it.
like the PSD escorting. Like
Yeah.
the escorting the ambassador. Yeah, you didn't know.
Yeah,
you
there
didn't
was
know
just,
anything.
yeah, and especially also young back then. You know, I mean, so it's scary. Yeah, I remember pulling over to the side of the road, and back then you could actually talk on your phone if you were driving. We didn't know how bad it was either. So, but I remember pulling over and just talking to him, and him just being like, Nessa,
Yeah.
just telling me like, I know you're upset, but you know, got to keep it together. And he's just like, this is going to be hard on Mom. So he's always thinking about other people. You know, I don't know that he would hardly ever let it show, you know, what
he was thinking.
Yeah, it was more about himself not about himself, about his family and friends. And so Jesse and Stacy ended up deciding that they wanted to get married before he left.
Yep.
And which was a blessing, you know. I think I look back at that and I'm so thankful that Jesse got to experience a wedding. I mean, it was small and it was how it went, but
Yep. Well, there was a lot of weddings.
there was a lot.
In a very short time, there was a lot of weddings.
It became like the norm. Like, oh, did you hear so-and-so is getting married in 2 weeks? And it was like, okay, yeah. It became the norm.
Yep.
And I do think it's a blessing because Jesse got to have a wife he was so proud of.
Yep.
And he could say like, oh, my beautiful wife, Stacy, they had their own home they did together. Stacy's got some nice home videos from them just being like domesticated. And he was like just so proud to like, you know, mow his lawn and be like, I'm going to go in and get a Sammy for my wife. And, you know, I mean, like, I'm thankful he got to have a little bit of that in his life. So they got married on September 18th, 2024.
So it was really close because we left in like October 12th, 15th or something. So
yeah, really,
very
really close. Yeah, it was hard. And then beyond the weddings that we all went to, there was a few going away ceremonies then.
Yep.
You know, where we went. And I know there was one in Appleton, and Governor Tim Pawlenty was there at that time.
Yep.
And so me and my siblings have a picture, I think, with him too, with Jesse. And we did all that. One of the last things I remember is we just had like a family dinner at my farm.
Yep.
That year, or like the week before Jesse left, or the couple nights before. And him and I went down to the basement and just talked about like taking care of our family. And one of the things that I remember Jesse saying is like, he's like, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's okay. You know, excuse me. Just about having a lot of faith. And it was the one time I remember Jesse kind of saying that he was scared. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay to say that.
It's for sure okay. Because if someone didn't say that, they were liars.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's something that's brushed over sometimes, that like, look at these soldiers and what they're doing and whatever. He's scared. Like, if Jesse had his way, he didn't want to go to a war. He wanted to be married and mow his lawn, eat sandwiches, you know.
Yeah.
but he was proud to go too. You know, one doesn't cancel out the other.
No.
And so he was proud to go, and he would just say, you know, he's like, no matter what, Nessa, first is being proud to go and doing my duty, and what the military gave me, this family, this brotherhood, this sense of stability that we've never really had in our lives. Now it's my turn to pay it back. And that's important. And, you know, I mean, ever the optimist, he's like, it won't seem like any time and I'll be home. You know, and that was pretty much the last time that, well, it wasn't the last time I saw him, because Jesse had his furlough right around Christmas time that year. So, but that was kind of the final hurrah. And we watched the buses go out, and I have pictures from, I think, did you guys go to Ground Zero? Like when you were in New York?
Yeah, we were in New York for Thanksgiving. We made the Macy's Day Parade.
Yes, right. And Jesse loved that. Like, he was excited about getting to see those things and stuff. You know, I mean, again, you know what lies ahead of you, but to see some of that stuff and stuff we had never done, you know.
Never done. I mean, that's the one good thing about the military is you see stuff that you would never...
an opportunity.
Never see. Never have an opportunity.
Especially us. I mean, our sense of a family vacation was like going camping 30 minutes away. Like, we had never really, because of how we grew up. So Jesse was excited that he got to go see that stuff and do that. And he sent lots of pictures home. And he must have had someone take his picture, because there's a lot of pictures of just Jesse in front of different stuff. He's like, hey guys, look what I did. And yes, I remember that. And then you guys going over, and
I think to back up.
Go ahead.
But I think there was a lot of hard conversations before we left with a lot of people. I think that had to happen. Yeah. Across the board, because it's hard to think of now. Like, that was the first time the Guards had ever been deployed. Like, since World War II. Right. So, like, not only did the soldiers not know what to do, but the parents didn't. Like, the grandparents, like, no one knew. Yeah, and I'll say this too, like the guy that was part of Jesse's recruitment, to this day we still talk. He gave the speech at Memorial Day in Appleton this year. Okay. And he says that he still kind of struggles with that sometimes. And, you know, just because he's like, I never in a million years thought the National Guard would get deployed like this. It was unheard of. Like when I got in or Jesse got in, it was unheard of. Like, it just didn't happen. Yeah. Like you said, it was a flood here, flood there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then... Could have been riot control, maybe. Yeah, could have been riot control. Like, that was a big mission. Yeah. If we got that. That was a dangerous one. Yeah, there was no wars or no one against that. You're right. It was just a lot of stuff. The other one I remember is our high school principal. Jesse loved him, and he loved Jesse. Yep. And I remember he came to, like, the send-offs and stuff, and that was important to Jesse. Like, there was important people that were, like, mentors in his life and people that cared about him and recognized how driven he was, and they showed up, and you know, I know that meant a lot to him, and I couldn't even imagine all of the conversations and the feelings and everything that led up to that. I bet how you remember talking to Jesse a couple of days before he left, I bet there's 1,000 people that remember that, like a story just like that. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Like, as many people as you talk to, like, I bet there's thousands of stories that they remember the last time I talked to Jesse. Yeah. And I bet everyone cherishes it. Yes, for sure. You're right. Like the guy who is his best friend since they're like 5. Yeah. We're still close also, and he says that he had, you know, just this conversation he'll never forget, and he's like, and I don't want to share that with anyone. He's like, you know, and those things are, you know, everyone has their stories and stuff. Yep. You're right. And that's a really special thing to a lot of people. Yeah, and I think it gave Jesse a lot of confidence too, going in, like, we're behind you, and we're thinking of you, we love you, and yeah. I know, like, there was just, like, a lot of his friends were just, like, I think they were just like all of us, but, like, you're really going to war? Like, yeah. They're used to running through the high school halls, like, pantsing each other. You know what I mean? Yeah, so you're right. It was a lot of shock back then. So. Yeah. Well, let's take a break here for a second during our training, when we were at Fort Dix, I got to know Jesse a little bit, but not really good. But did he talk to about what he thought of New Jersey? Of that training, or not really? I remember bits and pieces, but
Yeah, he was also married by then and
Oh,
living in
yeah.
Alexandria.
Yep.
And I was living on a farm with my soon-to-be husband.
Okay.
So we were kind of on different. I remember we got together a couple times, but his wife was very, and no blame to her. She really wanted to have his time, and they spent a lot of time together. And I
Yeah.
think maybe took a trip or something. There was a short time of days, and I don't remember that he spent a lot of time, back home during that time.
Yeah. Well, that would be pretty busy.
Yeah,
To get married and then leave.
yeah,
a month later.
and they needed that time together.
Yeah.
So
good thing they got it.
yes, absolutely. And but yeah, like I said, I remember just him showing the pictures and stuff. And then, like I said, later on when he came home for his furlough, we had a big family kind of gathering, and then there was more stuff then.
Okay. That was when we came home for right before Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Because you guys.
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yes.
It was about halfway in between. It was right before we left for Cloyd.
Yeah, that's when, and then we all went up to Alexandria and had Christmas together. And Jesse literally hooked his laptop up to the TV. Yes, you got me right now. Went through all his slideshow. That's when we seen all these pictures of him standing in front of all these monuments, just him.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was some with the squad, and I remember there was a picture of him on Times Square, and he had explained every little picture to us, in so much detail that me and my sisters, of course, started razzing him, well, can you go back to picture number 4? And, because Jesse was the same way, and
Yeah.
he was just so proud of it. And yeah, we had a great family night then, and yeah, that was the hard one to leave. He wanted us all to spend the night because, as a huge family, we were used to all just sleeping on the living room floor, sharing blankets and pillows, and staying up all night watching movies. Jesse and I used to do that all the time. His favorite movie was Titanic for a long time, and we'd watch that. And then Friends was our favorite,
Yep.
so he really wanted to, but. Again, he needed to have that time with his wife. So I remember we went home then, and that was the last time we seen Jesse. So that was a hard one, but we had a good day. And I hadn't thought about that for a long time. Sorry.
Oh, no. That's a big day.
Yeah.
That's a big memory.
Yeah. Yeah, some of this I haven't thought about for a really long time. So yeah, that was special. It was hard watching my mom say goodbye to him.
I'm sure. And I didn't understand what that would have been like until now.
Yeah, until you became a parent.
Yeah, now I understand. Before, I didn't think that would be a big deal.
Yep.
Just going.
Yeah.
Now, I can see where that is a huge deal.
Yeah, I remember back then, just because our family was so close, I remember feeling so awful for my mom. And now, when I think about that, I just think, how did she have the strength to even just walk away and not want to sit there and hold him even longer? It was her firstborn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was hard. So, but again, I'm glad Jesse got to have that time with Stacy, his wife, and
Yeah.
her parents and her grandparents. They were really close to our family as well. So
Okay.
we all were there together, and Jesse had just such an amazing support system. No one wanted to let him go.
I bet not. And I bet he's making jokes about it at some point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
After he left, did your family get the families do something together after that?
Like Stacy's family and our
Yeah,
family.
was there? Did you?
I don't know that we really did because it wasn't that much longer.
Yeah, it wasn't that. That's what me. Yeah, it wasn't very long.
No, and then we spent a lot of time together.
A lot of
so
time. Okay.
yeah, I don't think we really did because there was holidays and that,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
my younger siblings were still in high school.
Oh yeah.
So
that
yeah,
busy times.
I think my little brother was a senior in high school, and
How'd they do with Jesse leaving?
the youngest one was 14 at the time.
Yep.
So yeah, it was hard for them, but I don't think they completely really got it because I like to say it in a way their life was in a bubble. They had the youngest one had 5 older siblings that loved her to death and protected her, and
Yeah.
we were just taking her to go cheer her on in her sports, and she's in school, and it's like, yeah, my brother's leaving. And there's a lot of soldiers leaving.
Yep.
It wasn't the norm, but it was kind of becoming the norm. Like, we had all been preparing for it and through all these things. So there was a lot of people, whether it was a teacher in school who was being deployed with everyone, or friends of theirs, parents or uncles. And so it was just, they just kind of followed our lead, the ones of us that were adults by then. And, I think for my little sister, she's 35 now, and she was 14 then.
Yep.
She, the thing that's hardest for her is she just says she doesn't really have any of these memories. It's almost blocked out, and she's like, I couldn't tell you really what Jesse's voice sounded like. Stuff like that. Like, she's just growing up with the stories.
Yeah.
So, much like my kids and all of our nieces and nephews, because it's such an ingrained part of our life, Jesse and his service and his passing, that she kind of feels like she's like one of the nieces and nephews who never got to meet him almost, but and I shouldn't say never got to meet him. She loves, of course, her brother, but
yeah,
it's just not part of her. It's not the same.
No.
So, and I think for her, that's sad.
Yeah.
Because definitely they had a great relationship, her and Jesse. She just doesn't remember a lot of it. So, yeah.
I guess I never would have thought of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be hard too.
Yeah, I have a 14-year-old right now, and her world revolves around her.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I don't think...
You wouldn't think about that.
I don't think the seriousness maybe qualified at the time or entered her, and then everything came crashing down, so...
Yeah. Well, we left in for Christmas, and then Jesse would have got to Kuwait, and then on New Year's Eve, we ended up in Iraq. I think he might have been a day before me, but New Year's Eve we ended up in Iraq. I think he was a day before, possibly. Did you ever hear about any of that?
No, I never really did. And again, I could have.
You could have, and just say stuff.
Yeah, because since I worked at Headwaters, Kristen Ohm and I worked together.
Yeah.
And she's my best friend.
Yep.
And to this day is, and Jeremy.
Yep.
So things that I wouldn't hear from Jesse, because, if you guys were calling home, you were calling your moms, your wives, and your girlfriends.
You're not
your sister.
Yeah, that's
true. Jeremy was a lot of the communication. So the stuff that maybe I heard what was happening, I would hear from Kristen secondhand, or Jesse and I would pass messages through Jeremy. So I don't know a lot of what happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we ended up in Kuwait, did some training, and then when we ended up to Baghdad, he got his Humvee and his team, whatever, and started training. And the one thing that I remember more than anything, well, two things I remember about Jesse. The one is you could always tell when he was working, because we would get up, whatever squad, whatever 4 trucks were on mission that day, would have to get up at 7 o'clock and get their truck ready. And every time he got ready, he would play Black Betty by Ram Jam. And the loudest speaker, and the whole place was up.
I was actually going to guess the song. I was thinking Shook Me All Night Long.
No, it was shorter. I don't know. But and every time I hear that song, I think of Jesse's getting ready. Yes,
that doesn't surprise me at all. He is so into music. We have a picture of him in his 21st birthday playing air guitar on a table at a bar till You Shook Me All Night Long, and my mom trying to pull him off the table. No, Jesse, we don't stand on tables. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Not surprised. Yep, no. That was him. Yeah. Just as loud as it would go.
Like I said, Jeremy Ohm and I were pretty close, and we would pass messages, and I'll never forget, because Chris and I worked together at Headwaters.
Yep.
And Jeremy called one day, and Kristen's like, "Oh, geez, Jeremy's really got to go on." They were both jokesters.
Yep.
And she says, "Yeah, Jesse came up to Jeremy and said, 'Oh, did you talk to Kristen? Nessa say anything?' And he's like, 'Yeah, actually, congratulations, Jesse.' And he's like, 'What are you talking about?' And he goes, 'Well, her Nessa's pregnant with twins.' Oh, you're going to be the best uncle. Good for you." And Jesse hated my boyfriend. And he's like, "Are you kidding me?" His face just fell. And he was like, "Well, I guess you would know, Jeremy." And I think Jeremy kept it going for a day, just torturing him.
He would do that too.
Yeah, he would. And then finally he had to tell him, Jesse, I remember he had to call me and confirm, are you going to have a child? I'm like, no. I was 21, you know, and like getting it together. So, yeah, like we did communicate through Jeremy a lot. And then actually when I was preparing for this, I was going through I just have a couple totes full of Jesse stuff, as you can imagine.
Yep.
And after we got all his stuff back, his wife gave me all the letters I wrote to him back. And it was like, just, and I read the letters Jesse had written to me. And he was always just talking about food. And, you know, like just never touch on any details, you know, you couldn't. And he just always asking about everyone and whatever. And of course, my stories were just like all the town gossip I could think of for him, you know. And he said he liked that because, you know, he's like, at least I get to, you know, to find out what's going on home from home and some laughs. And
yeah, the town gossip's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're that age, you know what I mean?
You
like
back
then I was like, yeah, we were all young. And so, yeah, just a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so then we got all trained up, and I think the other unit left like in end of January or something. So then we were on our own. But if you don't mind, the day he was killed, just talk about it for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I have the other Jesse story that stuck with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is after we were following the vehicle behind him, I was in that vehicle and it rolled over. And we were the first ones to get there. And I was in the back seat, so I was the first one to get to that vehicle. And it was rolled over on its top, and the driver's door was open. So I went into the driver's door, and his gunner was laying in the, like, would be under the roof. It was on its top. So he was laying in the gunner tack upside down.
Corey Fennell?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but he was there.
Well, his mom is very close with us still.
So it was Corey. So, and Jesse, I think, opened up his door and was going out the other side. And it was really confusing time. Like, what was going on? And Jesse was yelling something about his driver. And then it didn't really, and Jesse took off. And I helped his gunner because he was stuck in the thing. And I'll never forget him. I bet he said it 10 times that Jesse saved his life. Because he like his quick thinking, hold him down on the hatch so he didn't get squashed. And it was like, and at the time, he just kept saying it, got him out, and he was okay. And when we got out of there, Jesse was taking care of his driver, which was very seriously hurt.
Yes.
But that thing, I've never forgot, because the same thing almost happened to me, like 2 months later, maybe, later in the deployment. And I did not grab the gunner. And the rest of my life is like, Jesse was the man. Because there was no way I was thinking of that. Yeah. Like, Jesse was that big of a hero.
Yeah. And, you know, and I don't think Corey'd mind me saying his name because the way you say he said it 10 times, he's probably said that 1,000 times since then, you know, when we see him or his mom or anything. And she'll say, because of your guys' sacrifice, part of your sacrifice, my son's here, you know. And she's like, they don't forget that. No,
and that happened multiple times. I mean, yeah, but I'll never forget that. Like Jesse remembered something that I would have never thought of. Well, way earlier.
If there's opportunity, you know, like, and that's the thing too, and it kind of goes to a lot of what I think about soldiers is these what ifs and stuff that soldiers can beat themselves up on. And I hope you don't, because every situation is different, and there's, you know, there's just so many what ifs, and can't live a life on that, you know. No. I hope, this is just I'm thankful Jesse did that, but who knows if something else would have been changed if he would have been able to, you know.
Yeah.
And I just think...
Comes down to faith.
Yeah.
I think. But, the what ifs could go to everybody that was there that day and everyone in any situation after.
Yeah.
So, hopefully people... It's hard to get past, though.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. It's it would take a lifetime, I think. You know,
Yeah.
when you and I talking earlier just about the soldiers that we know from Vietnam War or even World War II, and they don't think they have a story, or they have buried it all, or some of them can't get over it and can't get over the way they were treated and different things. Like, yeah, it's because of those what ifs that keep you up at night or haunt
Yeah.
you or make you, you know, try to run away from it at times, some people. So yeah, I don't think it's something we can live on, and I think it's good that what we're doing and talking about it and facing it and understanding that, you know, every situation's different, and
Yeah.
I think everyone has the best of intentions and tries, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the guys that, you know, were with you guys that day, they're still some of my best friends, you know,
And that, yeah. And Jesse was really good friends with a lot of them.
Danny Persky is, I mean, that was Jesse's bunkmate and friend of our family. I was just with Danny last weekend. You know, we're just very close. And Chad Turner, we grew up with him.
Yeah.
Just so many of those soldiers and that had to see that day. And we still talk about it sometimes, just me and them. You know, I mean, and if they want to talk, I talk about it. And I feel like for them, you know,
I bet it's
as
good
much
for them
as
too.
as much as me, yeah, just to get it out, everything that happened. After that happened, and like when we can talk about it as it comes, it's just some of the things the soldiers did afterwards. You know, like when they took their own furloughs to come back to visit, and there was the soldiers, their loyalty and strength, and their compassion to my family. And Jesse is very strong in how much people cared and how much these soldiers live with, even to this day.
Yeah. And it's really good when you can take that feeling and do something positive with it.
Yeah. I'm proud of you, Chuck, because I think this is amazing. I told you I've been watching this. I watched the one with Tom Dory. Besides hearing Tom's stories, like I also enjoyed hearing some of the history about Ortonville. Like I think he was talking about stuff on the pier and stuff, and it's like, oh, I didn't know about this. And yeah, great respect for those guys. And so,
Yeah, and all the guys, everyone that came home and did positive things with that terrible experience is a plus.
And then as they went to the med vac that day, and they were carrying like the stretcher, the way, you know, and I mean, you could tell the story better than me, but when the IED went off and the 3 soldiers that carrying the stretcher, you know, lost their life right away.
Yeah.
And the 4th one, Courtney Clemens,
Yep.
and he was from, I think, Arkansas. Do you remember?
I'm not going to say.
Southern.
Southern.
Yes, and he wrote a book later on. He lost his leg from like the knee down and had a amputee, and he went on to try to compete like in the Paralympics in Beijing. And he wrote a book called Amped. And when I worked at the Ortonville Library, I actually had them order it in, so it's on the shelves here in Ortonville.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you ever want to check it out, they have that.
It's there.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be a good read for people too.
It's actually a good story about Courtney and his perseverance and strength, and he's got a good story to tell. And so it talks about that day as well.
Yeah.
But then the best part about that too was that the soldier that was on the stretcher lived.
I know.
And thank God for that. And
thank God.
yeah, I mean, if there's some good things that come out of that, you know, the gunner lived, and the man on the stretcher, Courtney lived and went on to, you know, really face everything and try to make even better.
Yeah.
So
on the terrible. I think it's in life too, not just in Iraq, that when a terrible thing happens, it's to find it some good,
yeah,
or even if it's not good, something in a positive way. You take something bad and turn it a little bit of positive, makes things a lot easier to handle.
absolutely. Like one thing my family always thought too about Jesse is that maybe being raised with primarily women, because his one brother who was, you know, 8 years younger.
Yeah.
We always say he's kind of a sensitive heart too, and we're like, you know, I don't know how it would have been for him to have to come back and live with some of the things he saw,
Yep.
or especially like if he would have lived like the struggle of watching other soldiers die. You know, Jesse took being a sergeant seriously, being
absolutely.
a leader. He took his work seriously, like as all the soldiers do.
Yep.
But I just wonder sometimes with his heart if he would have been able to face those things. you know, and
Yep.
sometimes I think maybe he's at peace more than he ever would have been.
That's a very good way to think of it
And,
too. Like I
you
would have
know,
never thought of that.
So whatever you can find for comfort for
Yeah.
yourself.
No,
and
that's
believe
very
and-
comforting.
Yeah, and we have a lot of faith that he is in a lot of peace. So
I would have the same faith. So I know what happened in Iraq after. Could you tell us like how you found out what happened?
actually, Kristen and I think we were working at Headwaters, and we knew something had happened. Was it that day? No, I was in Montevideo and I came back. Kristen was at Headwaters when she found out. Sorry.
Oh no, that's
We were together every day back then, so
Yeah.
it was odd that we weren't together. No, and I came home and my mom worked at Econer in downtown Ortonville then. And I walked in the door to go see her and I seen my uncles there and I knew right away before anyone had to tell me because we kind of had heard something bad had happened. And I just couldn't believe that it was actually Jesse. And I mean, I didn't want it to be anybody we knew,
Yep.
anyone at all.
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just the worst thing ever. And to watch my mom, that same man who had said he had a part in recruiting Jesse and who we still talk to this day, he was the one to go and deliver that news to my mom. And they had been lifelong friends also,
Oh.
like went to high school together. So it was hard. And my uncles were both there. And it was hard for them. And also we're just like so close, like where my mom worked, my sister also worked there, my uncle
Yeah.
worked there. Like it was just like
It's a small town.
everyone was crying and everyone was heartbroken and it was just shocking. It took a long time to wrap your head around and my poor mom. That's just something you don't ever want to see is a
No.
mom get that kind of news and watch her try to handle it. So, especially she had 3 kids in high school still at home. And
Yeah, and it would be hard to deal with just the loss of a son, but then deal with your kids still too. Not deal with, that's the wrong word, but help them through it.
yeah, and the whole town knew. And then it was like everyone was coming over and it was really overwhelming.
That,
We ended up driving the next morning, maybe, to Stacy's house in Alexandria and being with her. And we had news crews out on the lawn. Like, literally. It was so hard. And then my grandma on my dad's side, who we hadn't seen since my mom and dad got divorced, all of a sudden we're on the news and there she is, talking about her grandson who died and showing pictures of him. The last picture she had of him, like, in second grade. And
Oh,
we're
no.
and we're like, who's that lady? It was an odd time.
bet it was.
Besides being sad and hard, yeah, it was just really difficult to navigate and make the right decision. You know, I think ultimately my mom and Stacy decided they would, I think on the second day, do an interview with like maybe the Star Tribune or something, and just because, like I said before, they were saying stuff like, "Oh, he was a star quarterback," and we're like, "No," like it was important to make sure his story was right.
yep.
And then I think the other thing is everyone across the state and the country were hurting and wondering, and it felt like to have 3 soldiers die on the same day in the same incident from just a small region.
Yeah. Was
You
unheard
know,
of.
it's not like there was someone from like northern Minnesota. You know, we
Yeah.
were really close, and so I mean, we'll forever be tied to the Timmerman and Day family as well, and what they went through. I know Jesse's widow became close with Jason's and David's. I think more so David's wife Amy,
Okay.
and they kind of formed a sisterhood also to support each other and
Yeah.
lean on each other, and that was important as well.
Yeah,
So-
you need people.
Yeah. I mean, it took a long time. And then I think we ended up having his funeral like maybe March 1st or something. It was like that, now because of COVID, we have like 2 weeks or a month before funeral. But back
Yep.
then it was 3 days.
Yeah, it was right away.
So we had a couple of weeks where we grieved and you didn't really know what to do with yourself. It was hard to go back to work or sometimes to even like go out, and because it was just, I think, such a shock, such a blow. And everyone in town who had other soldiers there, they were walking around just upset and terrified that their son was next or daughter, and they were feeling bad and trying to find out what they could do to help. It was just the way that I would say our communities pulled together, not just Appleton, but like Ortonville and Monty, they had soldiers in that unit, and the whole area. It was like where the yellow ribbon families came out, and the yellow ribbons tied to the trees and the fences, and the way I'd say that these small towns pulled together is just, it was amazing. The way we support each other in tragedy, I say that's part of the reason why we live where we live in these small towns, where we care about each other and we don't take things like that for granted. I'm sure that we had enough toilet paper at my mom's house to last like 2 years after, because people just wanted to do something. Let us bring something.
Everyone wants to do something.
Yes.
When there's a tragedy.
Yeah, and if it makes people feel better. So it's and there's a lot of that. My little sister turned 15 during that time, had a birthday. It was hard. I remember we found her in the closet, just like, we were like, where is she? We're going to celebrate her birthday. And she's just like, I don't want to celebrate. Like, she didn't know really, she should be celebrating turning 15. Wanting to get her permit. And it became all consuming.
I bet it did.
And it lasted for many years. So it was hard. And then when we had Jesse's funeral, it was hard. It was just, we had it in the biggest church in Appleton, and then there was overflow at the old high school in Appleton, and they had like a video feed in the basement, and there still wasn't enough room for people.
Really?
It was soldiers across the state, and people that served with Jason and David even, they wanted to pay homage to so there was like one whole section for servicemen, and family and friends, and we played AC/DC at Jesse's funeral, as he would have wanted.
You have to personalize it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I think that was one part that people that were still in Iraq, by that time, were back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one part that people had problems with, is no one just wondering what that funeral was like.
Yes. My mom had it videoed, but I don't know that video ever went anywhere.
No.
And but I know there was a small memorial service there, and Jeremy brought me, I think he was the first one to come home on furlough, and he brought me a DVD that some of the boys locally had made, of all the soldiers just saying about like what they loved about Jesse and they miss him, or just saying something to our families. And Jeremy delivered it to me, and I remember he played like In the Arms of an Angel. I think it was
Oh, that would have been tough.
Yeah, I phoned it too when I was going through my Jesse totes, and it's just like everyone wanted to do something, and from being all the way over there, the soldier that I know like initiated that, like, has just the softest, best heart. Like, reminds me a lot of Jesse, and wanted to make sure like deliver this to Vanessa, and he was an Ortonville guy who I had only known for a couple of years. So,
and I think everyone there was worried about the families.
Yeah.
And like didn't care what was going on there anymore, and wanted to take care of the families. But then we're so far away that there was nothing to do. And then that's what we're thinking. Like, how do you guys get up the next morning and say, "Let's go do this again," and hope it goes better today? Yeah.
Scary.
It is scary, but I think over there you just do.
You don't think as much. You just like.
I think you have to get in the mindset of just.
You just don't have a choice
you
anyway.
Don't have a choice,
so you
have
go.
to just keep going, but. At home, that's not. But everyone that did that, then suffered for it when they got home.
Yes.
It wasn't like you were just forgetting it happened.
You're like compartmentalized.
Yeah, and then when you got home, it was just as bad as if it would have just happened. Or at some point in your life.
You had to deal with it.
You had to deal with it. And if you didn't deal with it, there's probably bigger problems.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Was there did a lot of people from the state come for his funeral then? Do you remember?
Governor Plenty did. I remember that. And I don't remember much else besides them. Jesse had a pact with some of the soldiers that if anything happened to any of them, they would have that they would play Amazing Grace on the bagpipes after the funeral. So when we went outside, Amazing Grace played on the bagpipes. and they did like the flyover, the military honors. And yeah, that's a sound that stays with you.
That would have been really, really hard.
Yeah, it was. It was really hard. It was Jesse's last wish. I don't know. I remember exactly which one of the soldiers it was that contacted my mom and said, "You have to do this." And
Yeah. It would be beautiful, but it'd be really hard to.
yeah, it was beautiful, but yeah. I mean, I'll never forget that moment standing outside, and so it was hard. We didn't bury Jesse for a couple of days, and when we did, we just had family. And
Okay.
Jesse's wife requested he be buried in Sauk Center in her family plot, which I think that was just honestly devastating for my mom.
Yep.
But my mom was pretty adamant that Stacy gets to decide. That's his wife.
Yep.
And so he's in Sauk Center, and it's a beautiful cemetery.
It's very beautiful.
It is. We go up there a lot, and
I think usually I think no matter what would happen, like the mom and wife, that would be hard.
yeah, it was hard because I think Stacy would have even liked to have the funeral, maybe in Alexandria, and my mom was like, absolutely not.
That'd be hard, and it'd be even harder when they weren't married for like 10 years.
Yeah, they were only married for a few months, and all together had been together for like 2 years.
Yeah, that'd be two tough spots.
It was very tough and sticky, and I think the biggest favor me and my older sister did was stay out of it,
Yeah.
and let my mom and Stacy handled it, because it would have been whatever. But I feel like they made a good compromise to have like
Yeah.
the service in Appleton, and Greenwood Cemetery is really beautiful where Jesse's buried. So
it's beautiful there.
Yeah.
He's got a beautiful stone.
yeah, he does, and I think it was hard for my mom because he was the first one in their family plot. Like all 4 of her grandparents were still alive.
Yeah.
There was just stuff, but yeah. So we buried him, and we go see him a lot. And her grandparents lived there in Sauk Center. They went and took care of the grave. Like, I think I'm pretty sure they were out there like scrubbing in the cracks with like toothbrushes. Like it became like their daily job for a long time. So
And it's still beautiful.
yeah.
Someone still takes care of it.
Yes, very well taken care of. So, you feel a lot of strength in that.
Yeah, I fast forward many years, but I finally came to the point that I wanted to find everybody again. And it took a lot of years, but I didn't. It was kind of before the internet, so that funeral was, so you couldn't find where they're buried just easily on the internet.
Yes.
Finally found it, and I decided one day just to drive. I didn't know the cemetery, didn't know anything. I just decided I'll just drive up. I'll just drive past, and I'll see if I can find them. And I drove into the cemetery, and it's like, this thing's huge.
Yes,
The chances of me finding this, because I had like half an hour, is almost nil. And for whatever reason, I drove in, and I took a right. It's like, well, I'll look for 5 minutes. And I parked the car next to it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It's lucky because Jesse's is on the end.
Yeah, I parked the car, and I looked, and it's like, well, there's a flag. I wonder whose that is. And walked over to it. And it was
See,
the most...
sometimes it's fate.
It is fate. And it was, yeah. And after all those years, it still worked out good. Made me feel really good.
And then you went up to David Day's too. Is he at Camp Ripley?
Camp Ripley.
I think.
And that's another story. It's another story, but Candace's grandpa and grandma have been buried there forever.
Okay.
So since the cemetery got remade in the 2000s,
Okay.
or way earlier than that, like in the late 90s, and we'd been going to. So the funerals had been, and I never found the 3 guys. I didn't deal with it good for the first 10, 15 to many years.
Yes.
And once I found him again, we'd been going to the Camp Ripley Cemetery to visit our grandma and grandpa every time we went up north. We'd always stop by there. So when I finally was time to find David, we stopped to see our grandpa and grandma, then went back into the chapel to find his grave. And it turns out it was right next to her grandma and grandpa's.
What's the chances of that?
And that whole
What
cemetery
is
was
the
right next to it.
chances?
It wasn't like the next one over, but I'd been walking past it for years.
Wow. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was completely amazing.
I think that it just feels like that's fate,
Yeah,
it's
it's
important. Yeah. And the best is like when we go to Jesse's grave and we'll see all like the coins on the grave. And like my kids can tell you even better than me because this is part of who they are now because Jesse's so important and his legacy and the soldier's legacy. They know everything. Like, oh, that one means that they served together, and So, I mean, it's kind of heartening too to just go up there and even see those coins and different stuff people leave behind, and
Yeah. It's
Special.
special to everybody.
yeah, it is.
It's you. So after the funerals, like, how did you get?
How we get what?
Like, how did you move on? Like, it feels like it would have been hard. I don't know if it would have been harder in a small town, but like, you wouldn't be able to get away from it.
No, you couldn't. And then, well, the LTD Motorcycle Memorial Tour came, and that was for 10 years. You know, it kind of spearheaded by Chad Turner.
Yep, and that was amazing.
It was.
That was the most amazing.
And it started out with like 60 bikes the first year, and I think the last year was like 700.
Yeah, it was
And
incredible.
that was healing for my family. It was a chance where we didn't have to feel like, hey, we're making a big deal about our soldier.
Yep.
Everyone was making a big deal about these 3 soldiers, and we were celebrating them. And we could tell stories. The night before, we'd sit up with the soldiers and tell stories and laugh. And they'd tell us stuff we didn't know. Because when someone dies, the most valuable thing you can get is a new picture you've never seen or a story you haven't heard.
Yep.
You know, because pretty soon the book closes and there's nothing to add to it. So every time there's a new story, like even stuff you've said today,
Yeah.
is something else we can add to that book and keep that memory alive. And that helps. When Jesse died, I think at first it brought my family really together because we knew we needed each other.
Yep.
And then there was a couple years where it really pushed us apart. Like to the point, like it was really, I always say Jesse would have been so pissed. Sorry if I,
Oh, that's fine.
I think he would have been disappointed in how much it drew us apart. And it changed my mom in a way that she'll never be the same. I mean, she struggled with, you know, depression and alcoholism and different stuff. And it's not something that I think will ever be cured. We've tried enough.
Yep.
That, it's trying to give her the best to help her cope with the things that haunt her the best we can and support her. And it wasn't, she didn't work for much longer after that, and then basically retired. And
Yep.
she's she'll never be the same, and she was never the same mom again.
I think that's the thing. Like, if you look back at Iraq, like, just as a statistics, like 7,000 soldiers got killed, hundreds of thousands wounded. But the numbers are never in the families that got destroyed by it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's for sure. You know, and then there's like resentment towards my mom, like, you're taking care of my brothers and sisters, you know?
Yeah.
Just different stuff. And then there's the other side of the coin where, like, once I had my first kid and I'm looking at him, holding him, and I'm like, I understand a little more of how my mom feels and where she's at in her life. And it helps you to be a little more empathetic and feel her pain.
Yeah. Having a kid changes the whole.
It
the
changes
whole
your
dynamic.
perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was you know, I think we're still healing because of just what a big blast it was in our family losing Jesse. You know, when your family's not necessarily stable to begin with, maybe,
Yep.
you know, whether it's financially or just, there's not really, Jesse was kind of the rock in that family.
He held it.
Yeah. And so many people knew that also. Like the way the community supported, like there was a college fund set up for my siblings and memorials, you know,
Yep.
like I said, the street was named after Jesse and different things. But the way the people even knew what a difference that made in our family losing Jesse, I think that hurt other people the most. You know, there's one soldier I know, when he came home on his furlough, we were maybe out at like the Big Stone Legion or something, and someone said, hey, there's Nessa. And I heard him say to the other guy, like, do you think I can even look at her? Like, she looks just like him. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? And just walk away. And, you know, like I knew that soldier was struggling so much with, you know, his own demons and diseases. Yep. And it was the same soldier that once a month would text me or call me at 2 a.m. and say, I'm so sorry, you know, and just be crying and saying, I'm sorry, Nessa, I'm sorry I didn't bring him home. And I think talking to these soldiers and talking about stuff like that was just as healing for me as it was for them.
Yeah, I think the two stories make a whole story, and your mind can kind of put more ease to it.
Yeah, I think so too. Like it was just, they would call at 2 a.m. There was a few of them that we were just really close friends,
Yep.
really close. And especially when you're young, your friends are everything. And I just stay up and talk, and I'd be like, Jesse not being here, you can't let that ruin your life. Otherwise, there's 2 gone now, or actually 4. And try to explain this and say, like when I see you and it's hurtful for you to, when I see you struggling and carrying this burden around of this guilt or PTSD, it's adding to my burden too, because I'm hurting for you. I feel what they're feeling, and we just have long conversations, and I still have long conversations with a lot of the soldiers. I mean, they were my classmates. They were like brothers to me, and still are. And it could go 5 years, probably much like you and your soldiers. Like I could go 5 or 10 years without seeing them, and if I see them, they'll come right up and give me a hug and be like, "How are you?" Almost like we got to take a little bit of Jesse's place in their minds for them.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Yeah, and I think I try to go to every Memorial Day service and the Veterans Day programs. I teach my kids when they were little. I would come to their schools and talk about on Veterans Day.
Yep.
And I would bring, because when Jesse died, we were sent stuff from all over the world. Like not just like Minnesota or the country. There was people mailing my mom stuff, Gold Star mothers from World War II. They were making quilts or pillows or sending patches or charms. For a while, we had this Eagle collection that was so big, this patriotic one, that Mom started giving them away. Like if soldiers would come visit her, she's like, "You take this one for you."
Which probably meant a lot to them.
It meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to people that people sent this to us, and it meant a lot to share it with other people, So I think just the idea of that stuff in that kind of reciprocal circle was, healing.
Yeah, I bet it. Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a question. So did you at some point between the funeral and when we came home, did life like ever continue to be normal in that time?
I think like for me, I had been working in Monty, like I had graduated with my AA and I didn't really use it. So I had started taking like a day job in Monty.
Okay.
And I'd only worked there a few months when Jesse died, and I never went back after he died. I came back to work at Headwaters, even though I wanted to be in my comfort zone. Like I was so close to Dale and Mary who owned it, and Kristen Oman, her mom. And so I worked like the day shift there for a year or two. And I just think I just got by with life because I didn't have kids and that kind of thing, and just kind of lived.
Just lived.
Got through it like you could. And then for me, I think what was a turning point for me was then I ended up, I ended up having my son in 2007. Mm-hmm. And that changes your world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really does. For me, it was like, okay, I'm not going to work at a bar for the rest of my, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I want to raise my kid and I want to have goals. And it was a turning point for me where I kind of let go of some of the younger stuff and these sitting around, maybe feeling sorry for myself or my family, and said, okay, it's time to live your own life,
Yeah.
And I always tell Noah that, like, so sad, but I always tell Noah, I'm like, you changed my life.
I think kids do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think it makes something else important.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets something to focus yourself back on.
Yeah, and like just to me, he was like a little piece of Jesse, maybe too.
Yeah.
And I knew Jesse always wanted to be a dad. That was the hardest part. Sometimes when people talk about someone they love, when they say, "Oh, I don't get to do this with them anymore. I don't get to do this," and like for me, it's always been like, Jesse didn't get to be a dad. He would have been an amazing dad.
Would have been.
Jesse, who knows, like, what he would have done with his life. He's so smart. Mm-hmm. And that sense of humor and everything. And there's things he's looking forward to doing and seeing and goals and, so that was the hard part for me to get over, is not me losing Jesse, but Jesse losing this opportunity. So I think when I had Noah, I thought, you're gonna have a childhood that I wish my brother would have had.
Yeah.
And put everything I can into him. So for me, that was my healing point, and I always felt bad that my mom, I wish she could have put that energy back into her, 3 that were at home, because I always thought that maybe would have helped her more. And not that she abandoned them. She was a good mom. But, she just couldn't get through. There's just a block there that...
Just a loss.
Well, I think was just part of life now. But, so for me, that was it. And then as my other siblings got older and they had kids, I think they would say the same thing, like having their own families, put things in perspective, and it brought us back together, to support each other. And besides my son, all the boys in our family, their middle names are Jesse. Noah's would have been, but after I delivered him, his dad at the last minute said he wanted to name his middle name after him. So Noah's like, why am I Noah Richard? So Noah just graduated high school, and when, earlier this fall, the recruitment officers were out at the school.
Yeah.
And I don't remember specifically who it was. It doesn't matter. He served with you guys.
Okay.
And he called my phone and he said, some of the guys are kind of going hard at Noah. And he goes, I don't think they realize that it's your son.
Yeah.
And he goes, I just wanted to give you the respect of just asking you straight up, like, are you interested in him being in the military? How do you feel? And I was like, hard no for me. Hard no. Like, I can't go through that again. And he was like, got it. I'll let the guys know so that, Noah doesn't feel this pressure or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I had to go home and I gave it a couple days.
Yep.
And then I finally went to Noah and I'm like, okay, I did kind of a bad thing. Because I'm like, you are a grown man. You get to plan your own future.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and I said, if you're interested in doing that, I'll support you, and I love you. And he's just like, first of all, no one wants to be a doctor. And he's just like, I think he doesn't necessarily want to do the sit-ups and push-ups. Yeah. Like that kind
of, the doctoring.
Yeah. So he's just like, you know what, Mom, it's okay. And then also he's like, I wouldn't want to put our family through that. Like, the military's been a blessing and a curse to our family.
Yeah.
The blessing is now where we have the support we do. Just so much support and love from military people and all of that. So it is a blessing. It really is. But there's that other part. So I was grateful that the recruitment officer called me and asked me straight up about Noah. Yeah. And setting him off to NDSU, and hopefully he does make good choices there, But yeah.
Well, everyone makes a couple bad.
yeah, right.
You make a couple bad ones to get to good ones.
Yeah. And just I'm thankful, but because in a way, the military guys, the soldiers, are still looking out for our family. Just by doing stuff like that. Like, it's a bond that won't be broken, and Noah understands that too. He graduated with Danny Persky's son, and they've been best friends since they were born, because we lived a couple miles apart.
Yep.
And they're both, like, even though Noah, his dad wasn't in the military, none of us were, but Noah's still considered like a military kid, because it's just so ingrained. It's part of who we were.
Yeah.
And one thing I was going to say, too, that I kind of forgot is that when the soldiers did come home, and we had that coming home party in Morris, I think it was in Morris, right? Sitting there in the stands that day, that was also like a blessing and a curse,
That was actually my next question to you.
Yeah, I forgot I wanted to mention that back there, and I kind of
because
forgot.
I felt terrible, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one. That day was the most, other than getting married and a couple kids, that was like the highlight and the low light of my whole life.
So there's part for us, like, as a family, it was, should we be here? Because if we are we reminding them? This is a celebration. Like, we're so happy you guys came home. And this is a celebration, and I don't want to take away from that. And then on the other hand, if we're not there, are we abandoning these guys who loved our brother so much. It was a hard,
That would have been a hard decision to make.
and so just like what you're saying, like it was a highlight and a low light.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember. I remember the speaker was I can't remember. She's a general, I think. Like, told everyone to shut their eyes. And then told the crowd to make as much noise as they can. And I remember that. Like, I can still feel that. But then I remember I closed my eyes and then thought, like, of your family. And the Days and the Timmermans. Like, they're probably here. And how bittersweet it would have to be.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, there were so many classmates and friends, and there's people who like couldn't stop hugging. And then again, just like I said about that other soldier, there was people who avoided me, and then I felt bad for being there. I don't want to rain on your parade.
Yeah.
you came back, and so yeah, it was. And then they gave us those like black bracelets. You know, I think I've been through like 8 because you keep ordering and they break and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just like I said, like, just like you said, highlight and a low light. Like, how do you decide? And that they honored Jesse and David and Jason still and said stuff. It was like we felt like we should be there to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure everyone was glad to have you.
Yeah, but
it was hard for some.
Yeah, it is.
But it was something that had to be faced sometime too. But, yeah.
So now it's like, for me, most importantly, like, you wouldn't be able to tell maybe from this interview, but I do feel like I'm at peace with Jesse being gone. It's just some of these things, you know, you haven't talked about for years or how they deal with them. But I feel like I'm at peace with that. Like, I know Jesse's at peace and I love him. And after 20 years, you accept that you can't change things, and they are how they are. And like I said, for me, the biggest thing is supporting the veterans and supporting, keeping this idea alive. And also, like, especially important to teach, like, these younger kids, because just like when you guys first signed up to be in the Guards, the idea of being deployed was no idea. I remember when I was in elementary, a soldier came and talked about Desert Storm.
Yeah.
But that was even a distant memory. But now, like, in part, I think because it's not as in effect right here. You know, I know they just had a small deployment go out, but I don't feel like it's affecting, like, the way this deployment did with you and Jesse. It's, like, important that we keep teaching these kids and understanding why this is important and why we respect and how important our service men and women are.
I think people got numb to it. With the whole GWAT, I think so many people got deployed for so many years that it became
the norm.
It became the norm, which it never was. And I think that's a bad thing, too.
It is a bad thing. I agree with you. Like, we don't want... War shouldn't be commonplace in this day and age for us, and to go overseas and... Yeah. And, So, I think that's the biggest thing, though, is just that we all have to do our part and, like, think about these soldiers. And, you know, even over Memorial Day, it was at least 4 or 5 soldiers will message me on Facebook or something, and, you know, we're thinking of you, we're thinking of your brother today, and I always send long messages back. And I know there's one soldier back around Appleton, and he struggles. He goes through like 6 good months and 6 bad months, and I don't think he served with you guys. He's in a different unit completely, and I think he doesn't feel like, because he didn't go with this unit, he doesn't have military ties here. He doesn't have people to reach out on, and so we talk a lot, you know. And I think people need to understand is, like, if a soldier wants to talk, let him talk. And understand, like, this is all really out of your guys' hands. Yeah, and I think the Guards is really good at some things and really bad at others. And I think the coming home thing is harder because you just go back to your job. Instead of going back to an Army base where everyone knows what you're feeling. Like, if you go back to Army base and do your normal, and you're in the Army for another 4 years, you probably talk that out 100 times because everyone's in the same boat. But in the Guards, you come back. No, all of a sudden you're expected to be a dad again. A dad, but more than that, an employee. Employee, yeah. And there's no one around you to talk about anything. Yes, absolutely. And you don't normally, a lot of people don't see the other Guard people that were there more than
If you're still in the guards, it's once a month, and if you get out of guards, you don't see them ever, maybe.
And you're supposed to be this courageous hero. So how do you break down the wall and say, I'm struggling with what I went through, and accept that?
Almost impossible. It's not impossible. It's really hard. It takes a lot of years.
Mm-hmm. And like we talked about earlier, when I said one thing I always wanted to repeat about Jesse was that he told me that night in the basement that he was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important that we somehow get that in the conversation when we're talking about military people. They are scared. They're courageous and they're brave and they're trained and educated and willing and loyal and strong. That doesn't mean they're not scared of what they're going to do or what they're going to see. And
that's really well put.
Yeah.
Really well put.
I think it could change a lot of people's lives if we all think a little bit more like that when we're dealing with our service people. And, like these programs they put on, I go to the Appleton Memorial Program every year. Our AMVET's in Appleton, and actually, Pat Browning gave the speech in Appleton a couple years ago, and he talked about how the AMVETs and the VFWs, their numbers are dwindling.
Yep.
And it's because some of these soldiers, whether they're so busy with their families or they want to just let go of the military past, or for whatever reason, they're not keeping these things alive,
Yep.
as much. And that's hard. We have like 3 or 4 guys from your unit who's still on our VFW, but there's at least like 12 guys from the AMVETs that are older veterans.
Yep.
And it's like every time they see me, like they're the best guys ever. They give me hugs. And,
Yep.
they were the first ones to tell me when Jesse came home how thankful they were about the level of respect he was given his casket and body, and how they didn't see that in Vietnam.
Yep.
And they were able to, like, even them having to say that, they're like, I shouldn't say this. And I'm like, no, you should.
Yeah.
You should say it, because you deserved better than that. And it doesn't take away that Jesse deserves this, but you also deserve better than that as well.
Yeah.
And so those conversations and those encouraging them, say those words.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to. And having these conversations. So I see these guys and I'm like, hugs all the time, and they're a bunch of, sit at the bar and have tap beers and tell the same jokes every day to each other, and they're just about the best guys in the world, So going to their programs, one thing that I don't think people know, going to these programs they're putting on, these Veterans Day programs, these Memorial Day programs, showing up to support them, it takes like an hour of your day.
Once a year.
And go to both of them twice a year. Go to Veterans and Memorial Day. But it stays with them forever. I mean, they tell me all the time. There was one year I couldn't make it to Memorial Day program because I had a graduation out of town. And they told me, like, where were you? You always sit in the same spot in the cemetery. Yeah, they notice.
Yep.
And they care.
They do care.
And we need to care about them in return. So I think that's one thing that drives me to this day of, like, be genuine. Mm-hmm. And let's show that respect they deserve to all of them, whatever age.
Yeah. I don't think I could say anything better. I know that. Do you have anything else you want to add? That is a amazing place.
No, I feel like I bared my soul.
You did.
Yeah,
but that is a perfect way to end it.
Yeah, I feel good about that.
I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys both.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service, Chuck.
Well,
I think it's so important. I admire you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.